What's up, curious youngsters? Every day, without realizing it, we consume hundreds of products, and while some are pretty obvious in how they were made, others have a really interesting process behind them. Many people don't consider the complex process behind their glass or almonds, but curious people like Mr. Curiosity want to know everything. For this and much more, here are 7 things you consume every day and didn't know how they're made. Almonds are definitely one of the healthiest and most popular snacks. They contain many vitamins, minerals, and proteins, making them a popular choice. Chances are, you've tried one before, right? However, the process is somewhat complicated, mainly because the residues must be removed repeatedly. First, almonds arrive at a facility and move on a vibrating conveyor that removes extra shells and debris. Even after this step, they go through another machine that separates small rocks from the almonds using air. Still, an operator must periodically check to ensure almost no remains are left. After this step, the almonds are taken to a kind of conveyor belt that easily separates them by size. Of course, it also removes any remaining shells. Afterwards, they go through a gravity table where the goal is for the waste to fall to one side and the almonds to the other. Anyway, another machine will quickly analyze the almond shells for any information, so they can be set aside, and that's how they are then transported. A conveyor belt will try to remove any small almonds, and thanks to the help of another machine, the ones that aren't useful will be discarded. Afterward, workers reject almonds without perfect shells, and another vibrating conveyor sorts the almonds by size. A robot will inspect almonds for imperfections, working alongside others doing the same. If any pieces are missed, what happens? All that's left is to pack a few kilos of almonds into boxes, ready for market. Some will be eaten daily, while others will be processed into cereal bars and more. Glass goblets? Who hasn't toasted with these classics at an event? It would be odd not to use them for a toast. You may not have wondered how they're made, but the long, complex manufacturing process is worth seeing. First of all, inside the factory there are small dunes, like the one you can see here, which are the main raw material for the whole operation, and mainly silica is used. This sand is heated in a furnace at high temperatures for around 20 hours, with a large flame melting it from above. Once complete, the material goes through a pipeline to a machine that shapes each part into a drop, taking the mold's form, in this case, the glass body. After this, the body is fused with the glass and both its edges and the product are polished for their signature look. Finally, the glass is heated to high temperatures and then quickly cooled with air to move on to a similar process called annealing or tempering, where the glass is given strength. It is then sprayed with a kind of Teflon coating to prevent it from getting scratched. These glasses are now theoretically ready to use and only need a quality control check before this typical product can go to market. Be careful with the glass. Timmy bicycle. Tire. Most likely, all of us have ridden a bicycle at some point, at least when we were kids, and that's because this vehicle is part of the daily life of many people. But maybe you're wondering, how do you get a result like this? Well, actually, we won't be looking at the bicycle itself, but rather we'll focus on another part, specifically its tires. First, a long tube is passed through a machine like this to bend it easily. This is repeated until 4 pieces are made. With a sharp blade, these are then separated from each other. And even though it might not seem like it, these tires still need a bath in an acid tank, a substance that's necessary to remove any kind of contaminants. This step also improves adhesion of the later applied anti-corrosive coating. These parts then undergo a multi-phase heat treatment that restructures the aluminum molecules, strengthening it. This is when both rim ends are welded to rejoin them, where they later go through a process called anodizing, which basically involves changing the color of the metal with the help of some chemicals. Finally, they're filed, small holes are drilled, and you can proceed to the wheels. A worker arranges small pieces around a center, which will later be placed inside a tire using magnets to simplify adjustment. This way, all that's left is to check that the tension and adjustment are correct, and you get a result like the handmade skis we all know. If you've ever gone on vacation or simply live in a cold country, you've probably used skis at some point. It's a wooden or similar board that lets you glide over snow. Despite its look, it actually offers a safer descent, as we'll see. Actually, making them isn't very complex, but it needs a lot of attention. First, 8 to 10 pieces of wood are glued together in the middle, and for this, they will be held together with a metal press for 2 hours until it's completely dry. From this large block, about 6 skis are made. Afterward, the irregular edges are removed to form the ski body. Afterwards, a worker files and polishes the parts. Then a blowtorch is used on strips of high molecular weight plastic to make the ski slide more easily. And if you're wondering, what is this for? Well, it's because thanks to it, the sides can withstand impacts even if it looks strange. A piece of wood is added to each end to aid final ski construction. At this stage, the logo is printed on durable plastic for the base. Epoxy resin is applied to each piece, then a small metal plate is placed on top of fiberglass to be added later. Finally, a thin nylon layer is added on top and metal pieces are attached to the skis using a specialized machine. Finally, both pieces are separated, and since the edge is somewhat irregular, another worker is in charge of filing them until they are practically perfect. And another worker just has to remove the film layer from the top of the piece. This is how the ski that we all know is made. Motorcycles. Even if you've never ridden one, these vehicles are part of our daily lives, and we can find hundreds of them on the street. They generally have high value but remain very practical. And if you're wondering, EMM. Yes, creating them is somewhat expensive and quite complex. It all starts by drawing the design of the motorcycle, and most of the parts you see there are cut out with the help of a machine. You can add any design you want. Meanwhile, a worker welds tubes for the vehicle's exhaust system, and the motorcycle's logo and design are printed on another key part for this. Later, they were equipped with a compact yet powerful engine and a transmission system. And at the base, different parts for the bearing and suspension are attached with nuts, thus finishing the skeleton of the motorcycle on the sides. 2 large tubes are added, joined to a carbon fiber wheel, and will be adjusted. A 6-piston brake system is added, completing the front wheel section. Next, another worker installs the handlebar, mirrors, and electrical system. Only a few details remain after this. So, above the handlebar, a piece known as the front fairing and a large fuel tank are added. The final step is attaching a chain to the side at the center of the motorcycle, making it ready for use. That's definitely interesting, my friend. Spiral staircase. Classic spiral staircases offer an alternative to standard designs, and you've probably used one before. They're likely more comfortable, save space, and can be considered good architecture, but their creation process is somewhat complex. To begin with, a steel tube is taken, which will be filed down, and a small hole will be made in it, through which the steps of the staircase will later be attached. A machine cuts a steel plate into step shapes, which will later be attached to the previously mentioned tube and welded by a worker, along with a support in about 12 steps anyway. These pieces are then manually placed by the ladder support, including one at the top, and this is where it continues. Place the balusters or columns on top, and of course the rail. For the first one, the process is quite simple, since it's basically about welding a few bars to the steps. For the rail, workers wrap steel around the staircase using the balusters. Lastly, they cut wood pieces sized for the steps and rail to place on top. A worker will need to disassemble most of the staircase to spray paint each part. Although the spiral staircase doesn't look appealing now, the final result is completely different. Limestone fireplace. Fireplaces give the home a completely different and pleasant atmosphere, and maybe you even have one in your house. In fact, even though it may not seem like it, these are older than they look, and their production continues even today. But how are they made? The process itself is less complicated than you might think, but that doesn't mean it's easy. First, the chimney shape and patterns are precisely designed on paper and in 3D. Then 2 people draw the full-size design on a thin sheet and plastic, just like you're seeing now. Once the limestone is ready, a machine cuts it into the desired shape. Afterward, this block will be marked for filing to remove excess material using a hammer and various chisels. At this point, in addition to adding a pattern to the side of the block, the center is outlined, and any design that the fireplace needs is drawn on it with the help of a plastic sheet. Here, all that remains is to file down the extra limestone until it matches the original design. And actually, even if it doesn't seem like it, a lot of precision is needed, since even a small mistake could result in a slightly uneven fireplace. After days of work, all that's left is to glue the pieces together. As you can see, the result is quite nice. Thank you.